Well, good morning, folks, and welcome to the 2025 AWS Financial Services Symposium here in New York. As I just said, my name is Scott Mullins, and I have the distinct privilege of leading the financial services organization here at AWS. We are thrilled that you've decided to invest your day with us. It's help us celebrate the innovation that we're seeing across the industry as together, our customers, our partners, and AWS push the limits of what's possible. Now, this is actually our 10th Financial Services Symposium here in New York City. How many of you have been to a symposium here in New York before? Okay, a lot. And then even more encouraging, a lot of you have not been to a symposium before. Magnus Haglund is one of our speakers a little bit later in the keynote, and he and I were just kind of joking to ourselves that today is just us and a couple of our casual friends here. I can remember a time when our symposium was only about 35 people. Back in 2015, our first one, I don't even count that one, really, was just about 35 people in a very small hotel room at the Roosevelt Hotel up in Midtown, if you know that old hotel that's no longer in business. Low hung ceilings. We didn't have screens like this. We had like the pop-up stand with the silky screen, really faint slides. But we were learning together. We were learning about how we could push the limits of what's possible in the industry. Sir Arthur C. Clarke was an English science fiction writer, futurist, and inventor. And you may know him best as the co-writer of the screenplay for the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. He wrote that alongside Stanley Kubrick. And while we will be discussing artificial intelligence throughout the day, we will not be discussing HAL 9000, and we will definitely not be arguing about opening or closing pod bay doors. In Clarke's work as a futurist, he formulated three adages that are commonly known as Clarke's three laws. His third law is the most well known. It goes like this: any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And when we consider the not too distant past within our industry and the manual processes and legacy technology that used to power the fundamental financial transactions like making a payment, placing a stock trade, or making a banking transaction, it's hard not to feel a bit of a sense of wonder about where we are now and how far we've come. It's hard not to feel that same feeling today when new capabilities are making it much, much easier to do things that are sometimes considered harder, like writing code or summarizing complex documents or making recommendations in underwriting or lending or credit decisioning. But new capabilities or technologies, as magical as they may be, are not sufficient on their own to solve meaningful problems. That takes human ingenuity and determination to address high performance problems and opportunities. Now, AWS is fortunate to have many of our most tenured customers within the financial services industry serving as advisors to us as part of our Financial Services Industry Advisory Council. Our annual spring meeting of that group was just 2 weeks ago, and as part of our council session, we were delighted to welcome Greg Wooldritz, the only three-time commanding officer of the U.S. Navy Flight Demonstration Squadron, or as you may commonly know them, the Blue Angels. Greg spoke to us about leading and molding high-performance teams and precision decision-making. What Greg shared with us is about how the Blue Angels train and how they prepare for air shows. And it reminds me of Clarke's second law, which speaks to the human knowledge and tenacity that is required to turn capabilities into solutions. The only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little bit past them into the impossible. Now, who's seen the Blue Angels perform? If you haven't seen them in person, I hope that you've taken the chance to see them on Amazon Prime in that awesome documentary that came out about a year ago. And if you haven't, it's still available on Prime. Now, we can't do physically the exercise that Greg had us do in the council. What he had us do was he had us all stand up, and you can imagine all your favorite leaders stand up and stretch our arms out as wide as we could and to touch the other person's shoulder. And as we did this, Greg said, I want you to imagine that this is how far the Blue Angels fly from each other in the early part of the season. That's about 3 feet from one arm to another person's shoulder. And as the season goes on, as they tighten their show, what they do is they work to get that formation closer and closer together. And I'm going to ask you to do something with me. You've already raised your hands twice for me. I want you to all raise your hands, both arms, if you will, above your heads as high as you can go. The distance from your head to your fingertips right now is about 18 inches. At the end of the Blue Angel season, that's how far apart they're flying from each other. They call it the Yankee set. The reason they call it the Yankee set is that on the bottom of the plane, on the wings, they've painted US Navy, and the Y is for Yankee, and they are lining up on the Y in US Navy as a visual cue for how they're going to fly their patterns together. That's how precise they can get. That's how much they can change human behavior to leverage technology to work together against a common goal. In financial services today, we don't build the same way that we used to, and we don't serve customers in the ways that we used to. And we don't run critical systems in the way that we had to in the past. We've moved beyond those limitations of legacy technology through exploration and determination. We've turned ideas that may have once seemed far-fetched into concrete actions that matter to financial consumers and businesses. And most importantly, we're challenging norms on what is possible and how teams operate and how they identify, manage, and mitigate risk. Pushing the limits of what's possible means pushing ourselves and pushing each other. And over the last decade, AWS has benefited from you pushing us to build new capabilities to meet your needs and the needs of your clients and the needs of the industry overall. Across many dimensions, financial services customers have been at the vanguard of helping AWS push the envelope in the capabilities that we provide, from helping us develop new services like Amazon Redshift, or helping us to develop bring your own key for security and encryption. All of those improvements have come from the financial services industry and your inputs to us. Our CEO, Matt Garman, made the same point at reInvent last year, and he opened the keynote by thanking our financial services customers around the world for leaning in with us and for over a decade ensuring that AWS was not only enterprise ready, but ready to support the industry's most critical needs and the right destination for any workload within financial services. And now we have customers literally from A to Z across every point on the globe doing things with AWS that just aren't possible with legacy infrastructure or ways of working or commodity cloud offerings. Today, the industry's most mission meaningful workloads run on AWS. Workloads that only a few years ago skeptics deemed either too sensitive or too complex to run in the cloud. Applications like low latency trading systems with organizations like Fidelity, Coinbase, and NASDAQ. Core banking with the likes of Capital One, Temenos, 10x Banking, Thought Machine, Finacle, and Starling Bank. Claims processing with AXA, Liberty Mutual, and Safeguard. And instant payments with Axis Bank, Itaú Unibanco, and RBL Bank. Running these workloads on AWS with improved resiliency, availability, and reliability benefits all of us as financial consumers. So much of our daily lives now takes place in the cloud. When you check your bank account balance and receive a personalized loan offer, when you get out of your taxi and you pay with a tap like I did today when I got here, when you make a stock trade using a retail brokerage app on your phone, or when you file an insurance claim after a tree falls on your house. Yeah, that was me actually last year. And in fact, this is me in the picture. I don't know if you can tell, but throughout the keynote so far, our team has been having a lot of fun with our Nova Canvas models. And so many of the images you're going to see throughout the keynote today are generated by Nova. I think you did a pretty good job on me, actually. Even got my badge. Last year, a tree hit my house, fell completely over and smacked it. I had never filed a homeowner's policy claim in my entire life. I'd never accessed that benefit. And so when I began to do it, suddenly I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not even set up in the system. The policy is under my wife's name. My wife's out of town. I'm the only one here who can help remediate this problem of getting this 150-year-old oak tree off of my house. And so working with my insurance company, it was easy to go through the app, to take pictures and upload that, and within just a few hours have somebody on site remediating the damage to my home and really making it safe for us to live there. Pushing the limits of what's possible to deliver really gives real world impact where it matters to individual consumers like you and I. And it really made a difference to me in that moment and for my family. And we've come a long, long way in the past decade in changing how we deliver financial services to consumers. And in a lot of ways, we're actually still at the very beginning of what's possible. And I say that because of the speed of technology change and how it's happening across the landscape today, but most importantly, how business expectations are changing in turn. We're only a little over 2 years beyond the industry's first experiments with generative AI. In 2024, you all started moving these early experiments into production and scaling them across the enterprise. And now we're seeing a shift towards AI agents, which leverage AI to reason, plan, and complete tasks. The industry's adoption of these capabilities has kept pace with this rate of change thanks to your ambition and your creativity. You saw initial success improving employee productivity and saved time, money, and resources. You then pursued use cases focused on value creation and business growth. And many organizations are in the middle of applying Gen AI in these use cases right now. Today, forward-looking firms are looking ahead to a future that used to seem really distant, but is really just around the corner, where agents have the ability to think iteratively and execute complex workflows. This future is at hand because our industry was early and fast in the adoption of agents. You'll be hearing from several customers today on how they are streamlining processes, transforming customer experience, and improving developer productivity with agents. Agents have helped financial institutions reinvent core services like lending, underwriting, and claims processing. But we have a huge opportunity ahead of us to develop agentic systems that radically accelerate technology modernization, perform advanced research, identify novel investment opportunities, and develop deeply customized products and services. So, how is AWS working to bring the agentic AI future into the present? Well, first and foremost, we're leaning into choice and flexibility to facilitate customer adoption of agentic AI. We offer customers three main paths: specialized, fully managed, and do-it-yourself or DIY agents. Specialized agents are ready to deploy agents that meet business and use case specific needs. AWS makes these agents available through Amazon Q for Business, Amazon Q Developer, and other AWS applications like Amazon QuickSight, so that a customer can immediately deploy or customize them to meet specific business needs. These agents leverage your own company's content, data, and systems to automate repetitive tasks like code creation and get you fast, relevant answers to pressing questions. And when it comes to fully managed agents and DIY agents within Amazon Bedrock, AWS provides the most comprehensive toolset to create, deploy, manage, and scale agents. You can build fully managed agents and integrate with your systems and data, giving you the flexibility to test different foundation models in a secure and managed environment. Or your expert developers can build and configure DIY agents from scratch using open source frameworks. Agentic AI systems are going to become more sophisticated in what they can achieve, but as applications become more capable, the tasks we want them to perform can exceed what a single agent can manage. Amazon Bedrock multi-agent collaboration addresses this challenge head-on. Instead of relying on one monolithic agent, Bedrock orchestrates multiple agents, each with its own function or expertise. We're excited about the future of agentic systems in financial services because there's a lot of undifferentiated heavy lifting left to eliminate across our industry. But it's also worth keeping in mind that generative AI applications are still applications that require usable, actionable data. Like all applications, they require strong foundational services like storage, databases, analytics, and compute. Though we think of these services as foundational, they're anything but basic. In fact, they constantly evolve, and they evolve based on your feedback, as I said earlier. And of course, they evolve to support the applications that they enable. These are some of our most core services and may have been around for a very long period of time. We've continually evolved the functionality of all of them to meet the needs of the industry, to process more transactions per second, or improve availability, or more easily integrate disparate data sources or to efficiently train large data sets. Our services evolve, but they never grow old. And the same is true of our global infrastructure, which continues to expand around the world so that you can run the workloads that are critical to your business in close proximity to your customers, wherever they are and wherever you are. Our infrastructure now spans 114 availability zones within 36 regions around the world. And we've got 16 more availability zones and 5 more AWS regions coming soon, including our most recently announced region in Chile. We are where you are, and we will be where you will be tomorrow so that you can continue to evolve. And that's why we're here today, to celebrate the industry's capacity for evolution and pushing the envelope. Today, we're going to talk about that capacity for change across 3 primary themes: blazing new trails by reinventing how you build and deliver for customers, breaking barriers by transforming customer engagement at scale, and pushing beyond by reimagining modernization. To bring these themes to life, we'll be joined by 3 pioneers who will share how they are pushing the envelope to innovate on behalf of their customers. Frank Tarsillo will share how S&P Global is using generative AI to rethink how its developers collaborate and innovate. Alex Reeve will share how Coinbase revolutionized customer support to handle tens of thousands of customer queries every month. And then Magnus Hagelin will share how NASDAQ has harnessed 15 years of collaboration and experience with AWS to create a blueprint for transformation in the capital markets. This is where we're going to focus today, on how these three organizations and many, many, many more across the industry are blazing new trails, breaking traditional boundaries, and pushing beyond what conventional wisdom has previously thought. So I want to start by talking about how financial institutions are forging new paths in terms of how they build new products for customers. Customers' needs and expectations are constantly changing, and you can't build tomorrow's products with yesterday's tools and processes. It's a matter of taking advantage of new capabilities to meet customer needs, and in some cases, deliver services that they may not have even known they needed. This was the point that Fiserv made in a session at reInvent last year. In this session, Fiserv talked about a Gen AI-powered product that they built on AWS to give their customers the power to more easily query and act on their own transaction data, using natural language, which simply was not previously possible. What we're seeing today is that new AI capabilities aren't just supercharging products and making them better, they're fundamentally changing the way that financial institutions build those products and those services to begin with. A great example of this is Northwestern Mutual. We talk a lot about what new capabilities allow you to do, but it's equally a matter of what they allow you not to have to do. Building differently means automating tasks that may be necessary but don't add a lot of value when they're done by a human. Northwestern Mutual's developers face challenges with long response time for developer support and repetitive requests to address simple tasks like unlocking users from accounts. To reduce this overhead, the company built a multi-agent solution using Amazon Bedrock agents that handles tasks like documentation or user management, repository management, and pipeline failure management. They even added an agent evaluator which checks responses for accuracy and helpfulness, and guardrails to protect PII data. Thanks to this solution, Northwestern Mutual has improved support engineers' productivity and made it easier and faster for their developers to build more complex business applications. Australia's CommBank is another great example of a financial institution that is shrinking the distance between ideas and execution, using new AI capabilities from AWS. CommBank's development and operations hosting platform provides a frictionless experience to build and release new AI products and features for customers and employees. The platform provides out-of-the-box guardrails for responsible use of AI and native integration with Amazon Bedrock. That platform enables delivery of the bank's CommBiz Gen AI-powered messaging service. That service, which went from idea to release in just 6 short weeks, enables commercial banking customers to make payments faster by extracting information from over 80 different user guides and FAQs to provide relevant information quickly using natural language. Another organization that's using new capabilities to rethink how they build and deliver for customers is S&P Global. So please join me in welcoming my friend Frank Tarsillo to the stage.
Good morning. Hello. We on? Good. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Are we awake? Okay, good. I'll make everyone get up if we're not awake. Okay, so S&P Global, a very large company, lots of products, hundreds of products, thousands of workloads. I'm not going to bore you, but I'm going to show you in 2018 what Scott was describing with a client, our customers. We weren't moving fast enough. We're still not, I think, moving fast enough looking at the industry. How can we pivot? How can we drive the creation of products faster than our competitors, of course, but really what our clients need? And in 2018, actually even before 2018, we said we got to start to change our infrastructure, but not just in technology, but it's about people, it's about process, and then it's technology. So we created a program, a bit of a journey. I think people have been on this journey for quite a while. I think a lot of us in the room have seen similar journey. And when you start, you always look internal. You try to think you can do it yourself, but obviously it doesn't happen. You need partners. And we picked, obviously, some of our key partners in that journey, AWS being primary to that, to really drive our workload transformation and our business to really satisfy what our clients want. And if you can see this chart, partnership is not just treating someone like a vendor or technology provider. It's actually bringing them in. And we actually brought AWS in to how we work and helped us transform all of it. every day sitting with engineers and architects on the problems of transforming the technology and how we operated into the solutions you see today. As a result, and you see some quantifiable numbers, we shut down 17 data centers this year, as of this year. That's a big number. Hundreds, I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds of products, critical financial services, transactional systems, all hosted in the cloud. Thousands of workloads. But that didn't really matter to me as a CTO. What really mattered when I look back and I look at what happened, the entire business transformed. Literally, how our product teams built products changed overnight. They weren't thinking in years, they were thinking in months. Now they're thinking in weeks, literally. They show up at my doorstep. They say, Frank, I need it next week for client X on some enterprise software. And we have to build it. It has to be resilient. And has to support regulatory requirements. And has to be secure. All those things are happening. And we're able to do that now. And I really, from 2018 to today, it's been a really significant journey. But we're able to respond effectively. Now, what does that enable? We're an information, S&P Global is primarily an information company, but we provide data and services. And, if you look back, and we're going to hear a lot about Gen AI today. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot about Gen AI today. So I think I just jump to where we are. Then, let's say 12 years ago, AI was there. We all probably experienced AI in the machine learning, supervised mode, semi-supervised learning. And we applied it to our data processing, our analytics capabilities, time series. And we're always trying to answer kind of one question, but really help make decisions for the customer. In our products, we classify information, we extract data. And that's kind of awesome. It actually worked well. And AWS was absolutely there to help support that. We were able to do more with the large-scale data that we had. But if you kind of look at that was so back back in the past. The then was looking at more open source, using the compute capabilities, the key resources that AWS provided and others to kind of support as we were transforming the technology. Answering one question usually, and say that one question, Frank, that's not true, but we were always asking multiple questions in different pipelines. And kind of that was that pipeline view before. But the now is going, well, now with Gen AI, we're literally asking the machine to answer many questions, to tell us what new insight we're missing, the white space in the data, and more. And we're leveraging our partner. Our partner is awesome because they're following suit with technologies that help support us achieve our mission. It's Silicon. I love that. Multi-model support with Bedrock. Awesome. I love it. Give me more. I call it a Cold War, by the way, in the industry. All this competition now on inference, what's going on in Gen AI is good for the consumer, good for our business. We're able to do more, faster, with multi-model capabilities, as an example. If I drive down into the large language models, I'm answering multiple questions now. I go back to my data extraction systems, traditional data extraction systems, pulling entity data out of documents, unstructured data. I might get 10 elements out, 10 entities out. Now I'm getting 20, 30. I'm getting more insight out of the information. That's helping my customers deliver value, helping us deliver value to our customers. But what about this Gen AI thing? How we innovate, how we think? Well, we of course looked internally as a company, like everyone else. 2 years ago, we said we got to jump on this bandwagon now. We decided to build our own internal conversational AI. We rolled it out to 40,000 employees. About, I would say 50% are very active on it. That's a big number. And we're seeing just a crazy amount of efficiency and productivity. That's what we want to see. Can we measure it to the P&L yet? That's a good question. But we're seeing tremendous amount of efficiency. How do you train a workforce? Again, think about people. Again, you have to create some level of democratization of AI. To do that, you have to educate, train everyone in the organization on the tool and what it means. And now you got this kind of AI assistant or agentic space. And I think there's still misnomers in all this, what agentic is. We'll get to that a bit. I'm watching my clock. But our agentic day one was taking prompts and pointing them over to applications that we wrote. We wrote the application, we pre-programmed, we supervised it, we told it what to do when you got this prompt, and off it goes. Well, that was good. It's very good. We built an RFP analyzer internally, so when we get requests from clients, we tear it apart, we go to our internal corpuses, it's faster, we save 3,000 hours of time. The capacity for those individuals moved that were working on it before, moved to other workloads that we were dealing with. That's a good story. Case routers into Salesforce, basically routing client requests coming into the right resolver group, save thousands of hours. Issued code assistance to our engineers. 25% of what is suggested to an engineer now is accepted. We're seeing about 10 to 15% productivity there in terms of new efficiency. Just rolling this through. But is that where we need to end up? Well, talk about internal. Let's talk about our products. We talk about innovating our products. And it took us a while, and we're having a hard time in the industry saying, what is it? How do we, as a business, classify this to our investors, to people in the industry? What do we offer? And I have really 5 columns. I have 4 here, but I'm going to get to the 5th in a second. Conversational AI, we injected that into our products. Good, makes finding information faster. Well, that's great. Okay, helpful? Yeah, it's helpful. We took, remember that data extraction side? Yeah, made it way more performant. We can actually rebuilt our tools for data extraction, created way more efficiency in the data operations elements, more content to our customer, timeliness to our customers. How do we get the data down into their environments? On iLevel specifically, it's a private markets product. This is not a sales pitch, but we had hard times historically pulling client single source documents into a database. Now we built an engine for our customers to use with Gen AI so they can actually ingest their own documents into that system. It's a good example of how we use the technology. On the workflow and insights bit, and this is a key one, and I just have to be careful of my time. I have 54 seconds left, but I'm going to go through this quick. When we gave everyone conversational AI, they like it, they don't like it, our customers. It didn't help them, per se, make them more efficient. So then we turned it on its head with Insight. As an example of this, we took the conversational AI and we stuck it next to a document analyzer. And if you go into one of our products called CapIQ Pro for investment banking, you see the document, this PDF. And next to it, you'll start seeing summarization now. That's easy. That's easy to do. We see a bit of sentiment analysis. Again, pretty easy to do out of a document. But we took that conversational AI and put it in a tab. And I say, Frank, why is that so different? Well, we prompt the user now with questions to actually ask of the document they're looking at. We tell them, hey, did you ask S&P Global why they're spinning out mobility division? Like, ask that question. That's insight. That's making our customers more efficient. That is about workflow as well. And then AI-ready data. As an information company, we have to help our customers with the data we already give them and new data that we're going to give them. Help them with what? Be able to ingest or leverage that data in an AI architecture. So when you pop it into a RAG, the context is understood. What is the data that they're looking at, and can the machine interpret it, structured and unstructured? Well, then we get to the 5th pillar, which is part of the workflow pillar. And I was doodling a bit here. This is my diagram recently, because no one can really explain it. I said the agentic, 2024 was all about read. Everything's read. 2025 is about read-write. Agents in 2024, again, were very prescriptive. We were engineering them, telling them what to do. Agents in 2025 are now enabled in an autonomous way. They're going to make decisions on their own. And there were a few technologies that unlock that. And this diagram actually shows a bit of how you should think about it. You have existing tools today. They're going to be described The APIs are going to be described through protocols like MCP, A2A, ACP, and maybe others to come. And we're all working on it. And then you're going to put an orchestration set of capabilities around that because the large language models need to be able to run these. These are processes that are going to be running in the background. You're going to ask the agent to do something, and it's going to go off and do it. Well, go off and do it. How many engineers in the room? Technology people in the room? Thank you. Okay. Whew. There's an automation process running somewhere, and you have to keep track of it. And you have to put kill switches in. You have to put governance and controls in. You're going to have to do all the things you traditionally do. Scott was mentioning all the standard stuff underneath. That's important. You still need it. And we have to still figure a lot of that out. And then you have the assistants that you're going to build on top of it. Because then you say, okay, if I have the tools and they're wired in, then you're building an assistant that does a certain amount of things or has certain access to tools. So those layers there are important, supported by a lot of the capabilities that AWS is already providing. And Scott mentioned a few of them that are up and coming. Things like Bedrock, things like SageMaker, things like Amazon Q. And that is part of the orchestration. That is part of enabling these new agentic workflow. And we feel as we grow as a business, we are transforming at that level as well. Our clients want more efficiency. We are going to provide more efficiency through workflow, through automation, going, I like to say, up the stack with the customer, being able to respond to critical decision making. And we're going to be doing that with agentic workflow. We're going to be doing that through process transformation, which I want to leave you with. The biggest change in business now is not the technology. It's redefining all of the processes that we work in every day. And we talk about that in terms of engineering productivity as a good example, and we're reinventing all of that. Scott was mentioning the rework of our SDLC. We are literally creating an event-driven SDLC where the machines are going to do most of the work, and we're going to get from 33% engineering efficiency or actual coding to 66%. It's going to happen. Agents are going to make that happen. But what is that? That's a process change. We're changing the way we operate. And by doing that, we're going to help our clients. And obviously, partnering with AWS helps us get there faster. So with that, I'm going to return Scott to the stage. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Frank, for sharing S&P's story and providing us with insight into how industry can rethink the way that it builds products. The ability to shrink the distance between ideation and creation has never been more essential to seizing emerging opportunities. But building differently for customers also requires engaging with customers differently. Customers have expected seamless experience for a long time, but now they expect their financial institutions to know them and to interact with them as individuals, to move beyond personalization to preference, priority, and personal characteristics. That's easy to imagine, but in practice, it's very hard to break down barriers separating organizations from their customers. And Frank talked a little about that just a second ago. But new technologies have helped close that distance. And it's not just about effective communication. It's also about ensuring that products align to the ever-moving target of customer expectations. And in some cases, that means using new capabilities to radically rethink existing products and processes to make them work better for customers. Rocket is fundamentally transforming a product that is familiar to many of us, mortgage lending. The journey to home ownership can be an expensive, confusing, and emotional process. And if you've never done it before, like filing a claim on your homeowner's insurance, it can be confusing and frustrating. A big part of reimagining this complex process is making it easier for customers to get answers to their questions. It sounds simple, but at scale, it's a massive challenge that's requiring the application of new ways of thinking to go with new technologies. Rocket's AI agent represents the convergence of fresh approaches and cutting-edge capabilities. Rocket created an AI agent that integrates conversational AI into Rocket's platform, simplifying property search, financing, and loan management. The agent is always available to provide guidance and answer customer questions that are personalized to the user, based on internal data, not just generic information about mortgages. Rocket's AI agent has improved client conversion rates and transformed the homeownership experience. I'd encourage you to attend their breakout session later this afternoon to learn more about the implementation and the results that they've seen so far. Now, customer transformation is not a destination, it's a journey because you never really solve for customer expectations. At Amazon, we like to say that customers are divinely discontent. And what we mean by that is that they're always hungry for the next advancement that you're going to make. NatWest is an organization that uses new capabilities to continuously build on the programs and the progress that it's making. Excuse me. They've been at the forefront of innovating with new Amazon Connect features and capabilities to improve their contact center experience. I'm going to get some of this water real quick. NatWest uses Amazon Connect data and analytics capabilities, including contact lens, to analyze customer sentiment and inform agent decision using data points like call volume, handle times, and transfers. More recently, they've been using Amazon Q and Connect to advise contact center agents of the next best action for individual customer requirements. NatWest also uses generative AI to create personalized customer communications. As a result, the bank has seen a significant increase in customer interactions. The number of clicks and interactions with personalized prompts in their apps has surged from 250,000 to over 15 million within just the last 3 years alone. Generative AI-driven hyper-personalization is resulted in a 4-time increase in effectiveness for certain customer communications compared to traditional human-created messages. Another organization that's scaling and personalizing customer engagement to meet the needs of a rapidly growing business is Coinbase. So please join me in welcoming Alex Reeve to the stage to relieve me from my coughing for a second as he talks about what Coinbase is up to.
Thank you, sir. All right. Hey, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Alex. I lead several of the product teams at Coinbase around identity, onboarding, and many of our external customer support experiences. And today I'm going to talk to you about how we're transforming the customer experience with Gen AI. But firstly, huge thank you to Scott and the AWS team for putting this on, for having us. Been a great partner for many years. So I'll start a little bit with crypto. Crypto, we believe, is the path to creating economic freedom in the world, ensuring that everyone can participate fairly in the financial economy. And using crypto, Coinbase is on a mission to provide economic freedom to more than 1 billion people. So how do we do that? We do this by building a trusted platform for people and institutions to do a whole bunch of different things, including trading, staking, safekeeping, and fast, free global transfers. Put succinctly, Coinbase's mission, as it says here, is to increase economic freedom in the world. So how do we do that? Well, there's a lot that we need to do to achieve that mission. There's 3 key points I want to touch on here. Obviously, there's many more things that we have to do, but the first one is that we have to be the most trusted. Our customers are trusting us with their assets, and we need to make sure we honor that trust. And this carries across the entire stack, how we safekeep assets, how we protect customers from ATOs and fraud, and beyond. And ML and generative AI, as I'll talk about, plays a key role here. The second is that we need to be the easiest to use. Financial services products are complicated, and crypto is no exception, probably even more complicated. And we make this easier by using ML and generative AI to provide tailored and customized product experiences that are intended to target a certain audience and make it relevant to them. And then the final point is that we need to operate effectively at global scale. Crypto is around 1% of global GDP today, but even with that small adoption, we already are at 9.7 MTUs, which is monthly transacting users. We have around 400 billion under custody, and we're in over 100 countries, 400 billion, in quarterly trading revenue. And we are in around 100 countries around the world. And you can imagine if we are at 5% of GDP or 10% of GDP, those numbers get very, very big, very, very quickly. And so it's critical that we can scale effectively, both for the success of our company, but also for what our customers experience. Sorry, I had the slide grayed out. Hopefully you guys can see that. So what do we do today? Well, ML and AI is injected across a huge portion of the products at Coinbase, and we've been doing this for a long, long time. We started on the journey probably similar to what other folks did with generative AI around 2 years ago, and we're still pretty early here, but we've made, I think, reasonable progress. I'll talk about 3 different areas here, and what you can see are a couple of screenshots of Coinbase products on the screen. So the first thing we do is we use ML for real-time fraud and ATO detection. And again, that's critical to keeping our customers' assets safe. We have ML models that run on all critical user actions. So things like trading and sends and withdrawals and deposits. Anywhere that we think there's a risk that a customer could be ATO'd, account takeover for those that don't know, or subject to some kind of attack or scam. The second thing we do is we personalize the UX. And so this is intended to make our product easy to use, again, for people that may not have domain expertise in crypto. There's a couple of examples you can see here. One is that we provide generative AI market insights to help educate customers surrounding crypto. So what's going on in the market? What are some new tokens you should know about? Obviously, we don't make financial recommendations, but it's designed for education. And this has contributed to things like trading revenue, but importantly, it also helps customers that are not familiar with crypto get an understanding of what is crypto about, what should I learn about, what do I need to know. And then the third area is customer support. And this is a new area, one where we're making an increasingly heavy investment. And this is where we use generative AI to provide better support experiences for customers. So one example is the Coinbase Virtual Assistant, which I'll go through in more detail a little bit later on. We also have a bunch of internal tools that are designed to help our support agents operate more effectively and efficiently. Let's talk a little bit about generative AI. So before I jump into the details, I'll start with why is this hard? Why is customer support difficult? Seems easy, right? Just hire a bunch of people, throw them at the problem. In crypto, it's really, really hard because of the volatility. We will see in any given quarter a 50% fluctuation in user numbers, and you can only imagine what the daily or weekly is. And you just can't hire enough people to do that. You can't hire 50% of people in a given quarter. And so what we would see is very long wait times for customers. We would see multi-hour, sometimes day-long wait times for chat, which obviously just doesn't work. No one's going to wait a day. And so we had to figure out a way of automating this. So the first thing is that market volatility makes it very, very hard. The second is, again, we have to maintain trust. Crypto is scary, crypto is new, it's very difficult for customers to understand what's going on. And again, they're trusting us with their assets. So as we use generative AI, we need to make sure that we are maintaining their trust, giving them someone or something that they can talk to, and also that we're keeping their data safe and putting the right guardrails in place to avoid our agents being manipulated. And then the final point is global reach. We are in over 100 countries, as I mentioned. And for crypto and the mission of creating economic freedom, the international markets really matter. Often those are the places where we have lack of economic freedom. And so we need our support teams to be able to scale across over 100 countries in the world, different markets, different languages, different demographics. And again, it's very difficult to hire that many people. So this is why we started looking at generative AI. So there's a lot that we're trying to do here. We're trying to provide a better UX, a better support experience, effective scaling all at the same time. So how do we do that? We had a 2-part strategy. The first one is that we went very, very broad. We built an internal platform known as CBGPT, Coinbase GPT, which serves as an internal platform, but also powers our external experiences. And this allows us to integrate a whole range of different LLMs. It also allows us to integrate different infrastructure providers, for instance, Bedrock. And this is a tool that can be used by any team at Coinbase to build AI into their products. We also use it for our teams that are very focused on these core problems. So there's 3 areas that we honed in on. This is the second point I want to touch on. This is where we went deep. So the 3 that you can see at the top here are support automation, for example, the chatbot. The second is support effectiveness. That's helping the agents that we have operate more effectively and efficiently. And the third is operational efficiency. For instance, how we meet compliance requirements, both being more precise with meeting them and being more efficient with meeting them. And now I'm going to tell you about a few of these examples with a few more visuals. So the first one, which some of you will have seen, is Coinbase Virtual Assistant. And this is essentially a chatbot. This is an external-facing product. Customers interface with this every day. Chat for us is a very big channel for support. It's around 50% of our contacts, actually more these days, as opposed to email and phone, which are now the minority. And the reason that we launched this is, again, to cater to the volatility in the crypto market with that 50% fluctuation any given quarter. And this means that customers can get the help they need much faster. And of course, we have escalation paths to agents when we need it. And providing this experience has allowed us to instantly scale to different market conditions. It's not perfect, of course. There's still more that we need to do here to make this a better experience, but I'll touch more on the data shortly. But this means that a customer can always talk to someone when they need help, and there are escalation paths if needed. We also have all of the quality checks built in out of the box, so this agent is not susceptible to manipulation by bad actors that are trying to exfiltrate customer data, and we keep improving and training those guardrails over time. The second example, which I'll very briefly linger on, is a tool called Agent Assistant, and this is an internal-facing tool. Now, given Coinbase's diverse and global product offering, our agents have a pretty hard job. They have to deal with a very wide variety of customer challenges. In real time, they need to understand the customer's issue, diagnose exactly what's happening to the customer, and provide very precise and tailored guidance to help them solve the issue. And this is often a high-stress situation for customers. Maybe they want to buy crypto now before the market rallies. Maybe the market's selling off, and so it's high stress and high pressure. So to solve this, we launched a generative AI assistant. You can think of this, I mean, it's not a very creative name, but an assistant for agents. And anytime that they're solving a customer's problem, they'll see what you see here on the right. So this will allow them to diagnose the customer's issue based on all of the signals on the customer's account. It'll provide the agent with recommendations, and it'll even give them canned responses, which they can then tweak and tailor and then share back with the customer. It also will pull in incidents and bugs and issues, so the agent is fully educated about what could be going on that's impacting the customer at hand. And we've seen some pretty good results from this. I'll share a little bit more specifics on the next slide, but better contact resolution, reduced handle time, which means agents can get through cases faster, and better CSAT for customers. So customers are actually happier with the responses they get when agents are using this tool. So all of this has come together, again, over the past 12 to 18 months, and we've seen some pretty staggering results. We have now automated over 60% of customer contacts. Now, for us, we're not a particularly big company. We have about 3,500 people. This translates to around 4,000 to 5,000 CX headcount saved. So that's 4,000 to 5,000 people that we did not need to hire. About 5 million hours in employees' hours saved. And importantly, I know the numbers on the right are not necessarily as compelling as the ones on the left, but they really matter for the customer experience. So not only are we saving a lot of resources and able to deliver significant automation for our support flows, we also can resolve customer issues faster. So now 64% of cases can be resolved in a single touch, which means less back and forth with agents for customers. So looking ahead, we've made good progress, but to steal an Amazon term, it's still day one. For us, our focus for this year and for the next year after that is improving CSAT, so the quality of the responses that we get from our generative tools. We also have compliance, which is a big theme for us, again, being more precise and being more efficient with how we meet regulatory requirements. And finally, this internal mantra of AI for every employee. Now, this is where we use that platform that I mentioned to allow other teams to build for their use cases, including internal teams. One example here could be helping engineers operate more effectively and efficiently with things like pull requests. I think that a lot of folks in this room are probably on a similar journey to us. And so for those that are perhaps newer, I'll just share 2 key points or maybe 2 key lessons. The first one is, if you're early on this journey, the most, I think, unexpected challenge you will have is getting ready for automation. And so one thing that we found when we started with this effort is around half the time was figuring out what are the procedures, what's the documentation, what's all the right material on which we are actually going to train an agent or train a generative AI agent. And that, in my experience, is often harder than the automation part. And so start this early. You don't need to be an AI expert to start getting your house in order so that you're ready to automate. The second point is that AI and generative AI is not deterministic, which means that any problem that you're trying to solve is going to take iteration and investment. And so I think the big lesson for me here is run after the hard problems, because every problem is going to be difficult to solve and get right, and make sure the problem is worth all of those cycles you can put on it. So thank you, everyone, and I'll pass it back to Scott.
Well, thank you, Alex, for sharing how Coinbase is using technology to create a human connection with your customers. And thank you to whoever gave me the cough drop over there to help me push beyond, because it has really pushed whatever little particle of dust was in my throat all the way down. So I can actually push beyond. So thank you. A term you heard Alex use a lot in his presentation is trust. And as the industry adopts generative AI, retaining that trust of all the members of the financial services community is critical. Over the past few years, the industry has made massive investments in building this trust by modernizing the engines that collectively run the financial system to improve availability, reliability, resiliency, and of course, security. And more, we're seeing innovation transform modernization. The opportunity to harness new approaches and technologies to migrate workloads to AWS and modernize core applications is exciting because a more modern industry will better serve all of us. What's also exciting to see is the variety of different approaches that financial institutions are taking to reimagine modernization and to move faster to the cloud, and even make it easier for other organizations to do the same. And you really need different approaches because legacy systems differ so widely. In our industry, mainframe can present a particular and painful challenge. Transamerica wanted to gain business agility, but thousands of COBOL programs comprising 2.5 million lines of code made implementing change difficult. Requests from the businesses for new products and new features required a lengthy process to go through. Transamerica initially embarked on a manual rewrite process, but in 8 months, only 10% of their workloads have been migrated. Such a large footprint required automation, so Transamerica turned to AWS Blueways to refactor COBOL applications to Java. This effort resulted in the modernization of 90% of their workloads in just 14 months. Fitch Group is another great example of an organization that is investing heavily in automation to bring innovation to modernization. Fitch Group is using Amazon Q Developer and Q Transform to modernize legacy code bases while minimizing disruptions to business operations and enhancing security. Costly legacy infrastructure was limiting Fitch Group from innovating for its customers at the scale and pace it wanted. When we announced Amazon Q Transform, they saw an opportunity to test it for its legacy Java code transformation and gain buy-in from the business to implement the modernization effort at scale. And as a result of this AI-powered modernization, Fitch realized a 40% increase in overall productivity. Estimates for the work needed to perform Java upgrades were significantly reduced from weeks into days. And if you attend Fitch's breakout session this afternoon, you're going to learn more on how this solution enabled them to streamline their operations, save developer time, and enhance business value. Fitch Ratings and Transamerica both found ways to make modernization easier and faster, and we're seeing new ambitious approaches to modernization emerge every single day. Modernization is changing quickly and profoundly, and that brings us to our next and final customer speaker, who is truly pushing the envelope in how they are thinking about modernization. It's not just about the applications or even organizations, but it's about entire ecosystems. And with that, it's my great pleasure to invite my friend Magnus Haglund of NASDAQ to the stage.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Scott, and thank you for the opportunity to come and talk here today about how we are accelerating modernization of capital markets, NASDAQ and AWS together. So I think everyone in here, since it's a financial services arrangement, plus the fact that we are in New York, I think most of people in this room have some form of relationship to NASDAQ. Typically, people know NASDAQ as a market operator, and we don't just operate markets in Canada and US, we're also having quite a few markets in Europe. So a total of 20 plus markets that we own and operate. In addition, we also is a global data provider and index provider. So that's an important part of the NASDAQ business too. And then finally, we are growing our support for the broader industry as a fintech provider. So, and AWS is an important partner to us in all these businesses. In the fintech business, we have an opportunity to provide technology that runs more than 130 markets globally. That's across Australia, Singapore, Japan, a number of markets in the Middle East, Europe, Canada, US, and Latin America. That allows us to have very deep conversations with the executives in those organizations to learn about how they view the futures of markets. And as you all know, compute, storage, networking is instrumental in running markets. So certainly it's important for them to see how cloud can transform and also be the future space and destination for markets. And that is what we have then brought together with our long-term relationship with AWS that actually started 15 years ago. And we are now bringing, I would say, the next injection into a modernization journey. So why is this important then for the industry? And why is it important for you as individual investors in the market? And we see now a confluence of a number of macro factors that's coming together and fundamentally are changing this industry. It's a generational shift, both in terms of the investor base, but more importantly also how we think about how markets should operate and function. So we see shifting market dynamics. I mean, if we just go back a month from now, we had a number of peak days in all our markets globally. And we processed millions of, or matched millions of transactions per second, and basically processed over 100 billion of order messages across our markets in one day. That tells you about the size and the complexity that needs to be managed through this transformation. And cloud is already today a foundational part in order for us to manage that. And then we have structural changes. We see markets going to 24/5, and we also see acceleration in settlement to T+1. That is also a massive change in how we think about markets. So all the underlying infrastructure that we rely on today is basically designed based on different criteria that was defined in many ways 30 years ago. So the industry has to go through quite a modernization journey. And in order to do so, we need to come together. So it's not an innovation that needs to happen individually. We need to learn and we need to bring best practice into play. And it's not just about the modernization, but it's also about technology modernization, also about business transformation and thinking differently about how to consume technology, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. How do you bring that into your organization in order to accelerate your change? Okay, so when you take on the challenge of modernizing the global market, we need to approach it in a stepwise approach, and also think about what are the important criteria and outcomes we want to achieve. Capital markets are global, capital flows are global, and investors are global. But a lot of investors are also local, and a lot of the capital formation and the investment opportunities happen locally. So what we need to do in order to improve the overall market is certainly to address the interconnectiveness of our markets. So the approach we're taking are, how can we help individual market centers globally to bring technology and innovation and in order to transform and better serve their clients. The next thing is like, okay, how do you, as a market center and a market operator, serve your market community in a better way? That means standardization of technology and services, but it also means how can we bring GPUs, how can we bring technology closer to the actual match in order to provide better opportunities to react to signals. And the third, how can we change and reduce the friction of how investors can connect to different markets? And that is where AWS comes in as an incredible partner to not just us, but the whole industry. And with the growing infrastructure footprint that Scott showed in the beginning, we have then an opportunity to actually do something fundamentally different compared to how we run markets today. So in order to help the industry to come together around this, we said, let's create a blueprint. Let's base it on our 15 years of experience of bringing cloud into being a foundation infrastructure in NASDAQ. And everything hasn't gone perfect for us, but certainly we have learned about that. And if you're a C-suite executive in the broader industry today, you need to do, first you need to ensure that your existing infrastructure runs every day, it scales every day based on today's market environment. But then at the same time, you need to transform. And you need to ensure that you invest money in the right places. Otherwise, you're going to be potentially delayed in your modernization, or you're going to end up in a bunch of rabbit holes when it comes to modernization. So what we said, okay, we need to bring the expertise and the best practices that we have learned to the markets and to the market centers that want to modernize. And we said, let's bring in holistic 360 approach to modernization. Infrastructure, fundamental to that. How do you design for resiliency in cloud? How do you design for performance? How do you ensure your regulators accept your infrastructure posture and so on? Let's bring that. Then we said, of course, bring proven applications that work on that infrastructure, that scales on that infrastructure, and provide the necessary flexibility. The next one is services. A lot of capital market and market operators today, they do everything internally. And certainly transformation, if you're going to do that with some speed, you can't innovate yourself. So it's all about how can actually NASDAQ and AWS come in and augment this organization to help and drive and accelerate transformation. And then, of course, this industry is data and AI enabled, and it's going to be even more so going forward, not just in the trader space, but across the whole value chain. And those 4 pillars are we bringing then to market. So infrastructure, as I said, compute, storage, and networking is critical to this. And we have innovated quite a bit with AWS during the last 3 years around using edge compute. And so a number of our markets here in the US runs on Outpost and edge compute that had been optimized to work for our particular use case. When we started now to discuss what do we do next, we said it's not sufficient just to think about the individual Outpost compute. How can we use AWS full strength when it comes to running infrastructure? So what that allowed us to do was basically to construct a data center construct that meets the needs of market, not just on running on public cloud infrastructure, but actually helping to solve the end-to-end problem of running a market, which typically means you need to have a co-location facility so you don't have to disrupt your current market ecosystem. Then you need some edge compute where you can run your market. And then you have standard AWS services in close proximity to your markets. And that is a unique design and a unique concept that we're now bringing to market, where we are actually capitalizing on AWS capabilities on not just being a hyperscaler on infrastructure, but actually being a hyperscaler on the whole data center construct. And that is new and unique to what we're trying to do here. So how are we going to bring this then to realization? So I think we have a very, very interesting value proposition and vision for the industry that starts today, but also goes beyond 5 years and goes beyond 10 years when we think about how the industry is going to transform. So what we said, let's do this in a stepwise approach. Let's ensure that the industry can bring cloud in at their own pace. And that's one part of the blueprint. The second is, how can we ensure that it's not just public cloud infrastructure? How do we bring this unique new infrastructure concept into it? And how can we ensure that our experience from running mission critical workloads in cloud, how can we ensure that that gets in here? So we're starting with our own Nordic market as our transformation laboratory. So we're going to bring in this new blueprint, this new infrastructure concept into our Nordic market. But we're also collaborating with others in the market, and two of our pilot partners will be BMV in Mexico and then Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And by doing so, we will enable them to modernize, but at the same time, they will be part of a more interconnected world. So this is the starting point, and this is going to take us further into the future. So what we are doing now is creating that blueprint based on experience. And it's experience not just from us, it's experience from AWS and all the clients they serve in industry today. We're taking a responsible approach to modernization because certainly this needs to happen within the guardrails that we as end investors expect markets to operate within. And it's also something that's going to require collaboration across the broader industry. This is not just NASDAQ and AWS that's going to collaborate. This is an invitation to the broader community to innovate and shape the future of capital markets. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Magnus. I'm so proud of what NASDAQ and AWS have accomplished together so far, and I'm really excited for what lies ahead. This idea that we don't really know what we can accomplish with technology until we try to do things that before we didn't think were possible has come up several times today. Frank shared with us that to build for tomorrow, you can't use yesterday's tools. You have to be willing to reinvent how you build in order to deliver differentiated value. Alex shared how technology can enable you to deliver a personalized human experience at scale, 24/7, 365 days a year, if you're willing to tackle the biggest challenges first. And Magnus just shared with us a future-forward mental model that erases the boundary that means that local is limited and that enables a connected fabric across the global financial systems. Location will never again limit access to capabilities if you're open to pushing the limits of your own thinking. And this brings us back to Clark's 3 laws. The first law we discussed noted that advances in technology can often feel like some sort of magic, with an abracadabra and a poof-like feeling when new capabilities arrive to revolutionize and what are normally familiar things. Clark's second law reveals that advancements aren't really magic. They're the diligent execution of the willingness to push just a little bit more beyond what we believe is possible, to stress just a little bit more to do and to deliver more, to challenge our own ways of thinking and to continually evolve our ways of working. And Clark's first law is a reminder to us all that conventional wisdom is simply a representation of what is generally done or believed, which in turn is merely the boundary line that separates builders from the next frontier and from the next step forward. As you apply your creativity and your willingness to continually make things better for your customers, for your companies, and for the industry, you have our commitment that AWS will be right there with you, pushing the limits of what's possible as together we reinvent how the world's financial systems work. Thank you for investing your day with us today. We're excited about the opportunities that we have for shared exploration in our time together, and we can't wait to see what we can build together as we push the limits of what's possible. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some housekeeping and a preview of what our time together is going to look like. From here, we're going to continue with our plenary session with a presentation from Byron Cook, who I'm going to introduce just in a second, and then a panel discussion that's going to be focused on generative AI. We're then going to enjoy a networking break before we split into 4 separate panel discussions. That's going to be focused on the latest trends in banking, payments, capital markets, and insurance. And you can see our agenda here on the screen. We're then going to shift. You don't have to take a picture because we're going to have a QR code in a second. We're then going to shift into our 3 partner breakout sessions. There it is. before breaking for lunch. And after that, we're going to pivot to our customer-led breakout sessions, after which I hope you'll join us for our receptions. There's a QR code. I want to thank all of our customers who are presenting today. It's an amazing lineup of industry leaders, and we could not deliver this event without you. This is a storytelling event, so thank you for sharing your stories. We are so grateful that you're sharing what you've learned with your peers. And I also want to thank our sponsors, our partners, without whom this event would not be possible at all. I want to thank in particular our 3 platinum sponsors, NVIDIA, Deloitte, and TCS, whom you'll hear from directly this morning in their breakout sessions. Now, if you need anything throughout the day, please don't hesitate to ask me personally. I'm wearing this very bright blazer. I hope you can find me. Or ask another AWS employee. We'll all be wearing orange lanyards, or the staff members who are going to be wearing those orange t-shirts. And one final note, every session that you're going to go today is going to conclude with a QR code like the one you see here. Scanning this code will take you to a survey. We covet your feedback, which we channel directly into the design of this event every single year. So please go ahead and scan this code right now and share some thoughts with us.